Hey guys, what's up? We are reading the East Lancashire Railway, a line side guide by John Parry. Let's read this story of the book, okay? Read this. This booklet is not simply a history of the East Lancashire Railway. Rather, it is about the valley through which the railway runs and for which it was a lifeline for people and products. The people range from a Prime Minister, Sir Robert Peel, to characteristically unknown workers in the mills producing mainly cotton goods and paper, which were exported across the world. The journey from Haywood to Rawtenstall is presented considering issues prompted by what is seen as one travels along the line, either on the right, traveling north to Rawtenstall, or to the left. The text is divided into 4 sections. First, it is a short history of the line, followed by the journey from Haywood to Bury, then Bury to Ramsbottom, and then on to Rawtenstall. Let's read a little history. In 1843, plans were made to build a railway from Clifton Junction, just south of Radcliffe, to Rawtenstall along the Irwell Valley, through Bury and Ramsbottom. Within a year, it was amalgamated with the Blackburn-Bury, Accrington and Colne Extension Railway and became known as the East Lancashire Railway. With that, Rawtenstall was no longer the primary goal, and Accrington was the then terminus. That said, the arrival of the first train to Rawtenstall on 25th September 1846 saw 600 passengers entertained to an elegant collegium at Mr. John Robinson K's new weaving shed, so much for the south-north development of the railway from Bury to Rawtenstall. The east-west section of the present railway from Bury to Haywood was part of a much longer line from Liverpool eventually to the West Riding and beyond, and was in service by November to the West Riding and beyond, and was in service by November 1848. The two lines intersected at Bury with the east-west line burrowing under the present East Lancashire Railway, roughly at the Buckley Wells yards just visible to the south of Bolton Street Station. Eventually, both lines were to become parts of the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway. As today, Bury was the headquarters of the original East Lancashire Railway. Imposing offices were built together with the station at Bolton Street. By 1916, there was an electric train service to Manchester. In 1947, the station was destroyed by fire, rebuilt by 1952. When the station entrance was completed, much in the same form as it is today. Sadly, the same was no the case for the original ELA office block demolished in the 1970s, basically on the same footprint as the buildings on platform 2 today, which were built in a style sympathetic to an early age. What was no rebuilt was the clock turret above the entrance, described as perhaps the most fantastic clock turret of all the pointed wooden French affair that perched so incongruously on top of the frontage awning of all places at Bury Bolton Street. The journey Haywood to Bury. Let's assume that you are starting your journey at Haywood. There's free parking, which saves the frustration of trying to find a parking space in Bury. Haywood was a mill town. In 1817, there were 10 mills. By 1891, there were 30, and eventually it is said there were about 150 mills manufacturing cotton, fustian, hard-wearing, twilled cloth, tea, cloths, towels, velvets, and Egyptian and American cottons. In the early days, workers included Papua children brought from southern England to work in the mills between 1835 and 1837. 300 such children were brought into Lancashire. That system continued until 1885, close to Haywood Station car park, and on the left as you walk to the station entrance were the now long since demolished Perseverance Mills. They were founded by the cooperative movement in 1860 as spinning and weaving mills. Leading members of the cooperative movement lived in Haywood close to Rochdale, where the first co-op store was started by the Rochdale. Pioneers in 1884 saw that working people had access to flour, sugar, butter, and oats, which were not contaminated by sawdust and milk, nor diluted with questionable water. In time, the railway was to be used to distribute both the produce of the mills and goods sold by the co-op movement. Once you gain access to the platform at Haywood, you'll notice the building that once housed the Phoenix Brewery. It was to be found on Audience survey maps by 1890 and continued to brew until was closed in 1956. There's a microbrewery functioning on the site, a present one of many found along the route of the ELR looks out of for the beer aficionados trips, also known as the rail trails, advertised from the time to time. At some distance beyond the level crossing was the Green Lane Wagon Works, opened by the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway in 1863. Not only were wagons made there, but many were brought from all over the country to repair. It was closed in 1993 and is the first reminder that so much was delivered by rail until road haulage dominated logistics in the UK. The Haywood station you now see is not the original one which was opened in 1841, nor its later replacement, though there still remains some evidence of the original platform on the opposite side of the Whistle Stop Cafe coach. The line well used, providing vital access for workers communicating between Bolton and Rochdale were before your age of the car. Likewise, holiday traffic on summer Saturdays took excited families through Haywood from Yorkshire, towns of Blackpool, Southport, and North Wales, or in the opposite direction, from Merseyside to the East Coast. By the 1960s, even people own cars, few would consider driving much further than 50 miles in pre-motorway times. Haywood Station was closed to passenger traffic in 1967, but the line was retained for a regular freight service from Manchester to Rawtenstall, taking coal to the British Fuels Coal Concentration Depot there. 1 mile to the west of Haywood Station was Broadfield Station, the buildings of which are now demolished. A new housing estate was being built on the site, and although the platforms still exist, they are completely overgrown and barely noticeable. However, this was once a busy station with as many as 30 trains a day, passing through in both directions in 1950s. Slowly used declined, and by late in 1970 the service was brought to a halt once the nearby New York mill was served by the station, whilst in the 1930s the RAF opened a supply depot with sufficient seedlings. It is said to accommodate in 180 wagons. Wow, that's an old map. That's beautiful. Moving on, the train heads west along that is now a single track, much of which had to be cleared of thousands of tons of the earth. It then passes over the M66 motorway and climbs steeply to pass over the Metrolink line from Bury to Manchester. This incline is not inconsiderable and has been nicknamed the ski slope. If you return by the train to Haywood, listen out of after leaving Bury station for the distinctive change of beat locomotives. Both steam and diesel take the strain to pull carriages up the incline. It's about this point after we pass over the Metrolink line and just before the sharp right turn into Bury Bolton Street Station that there is scarcely any indication that here was once a station known as Bury Knowsley Street. It had originally been the terminus of a line from Liverpool to Bury, but this was later opened eastwards to Rochdale and further. It was a no insubstantial station, providing a service to more than 100 mills in the area and bringing raw materials from Salford docks and Liverpool and sending on finished goods exported through the same docks. Goods sheds were built beside the station, large seedlings were laid, and a connecting line installed to provide direct access to a line of Salford docks prior to our line making a sharp curve to Bolton Street Station. There was once a junction taking line down and under the ELR's present day. Buckley Wells, seedlings and workshops, and on towards Liverpool. That line has since long gone. Let's do the Buckley Wells. Before we enter Bolton Street Station, there is quite sharp bend. It's at this point, if you are at the front of the train on the left, that you'll see the fireman lean down from the cab to give one of the signalmen something that looks like a tennis racket without strings. It actually has a pouch on it with a token inside. No train can be in the Haywood to Bury stretch of single line track without that token. Thus, two trains running in opposite directions cannot collide because only the train with the token is allowed on the line. Since the early days of railway signalmen have been known as bobbies. If you think that what policemen were known as, then you are thinking on the right lines. Since the time of Liverpool and Manchester railway officers were on duty at railway stations and were responsible for the safe and efficient working of the trains. This is the VR lights one. It shows this is the one. Okay. Railway companies employ their own policing staff to safeguard their property and keep an eye on the navies who build the railways. These bobbies were the first people to control trains, and it is said indicated that a train could move away by taking off an obstruction they had put on the line, thus taking off the signal. The Liverpool and Manchester bobbies developed a basic code of signals which later became the foundation for a comprehensive system agreed at the conference in Birmingham in 1840. Birmingham. To this day in railway, in this day in system agreed that the railway parlance when a signal shows a train can move, it is said that the signal is off. You'll see repeater signs on many stations elsewhere with the word off lit when appropriate. As the train takes the curve to the right, on your left, you'll just catch the glimpse of the buildings and yards at Buckley Wells. Behind the scenes, a great deal is going on. In the carriage and wagon shed, usually unseen staff and volunteers spend hours maintaining and repairing the railway's aging carriage fleet. If you wonder about the price of tickets, please remember the price of coal has risen 4 or 5-fold, and the cost of repairing, for instance, corroded panels and roofs and carriages that have been out in all weathers for 50 and more years. We cannot run the railway unless we fulfill fitness to run examinations and health and safety checks. Your safe journey is made possible because of many unsung heroes, among whom we must include the permanent way, who see to the maintenance of the track 12 miles plus. Don't forget the seedlings in length. There's a heavy job and more complex than meets the eye necessitation work in whatever the weather and often in places of difficult access. This is the network rail with the orange jacket. Then there is the locomotive works where locomotives are repaired and maintenance. One tends to overlook the fact that every 10 years, amongst other matters, boilers have to be thoroughly examined to ensure they are fit for purpose and can be insured. The building itself has quite a history. Originally built in Victorian times, the leaking roofs are proof of that. The building has since serviced not only a repair shop, but it was also used to house, repair, and maintain the electric multiple until on the Bury to Manchester line, now the basis of the Metrolink service. Recently refurbished in the Buckley Wells complex, something known as the Earl of Bradford's platform. Seemingly, the said Earl was able to run his carriage horse-drawn onto a railway wagon so that his own carriage at his destination. Think along the lines of the service of cars once offered between London, Paddington and Cornwall. We no longer offer this service, there being few horse-drawn carriages on nowadays, but you might be able to hire Mr. Peter Waterman's luxury observation saloon for that special association. Have a word at the ticket office. And this is the ticket. Bury Bolton Street Station. The station was originally opened in 1846 by the Manchester, Bury and Rossendale Railway to serve the town of Bury, whose castle dates back to 14th century. Bury was the birthplace of Sir Robert Peel. Known as the founder of the police, he was responsible for the repeal in 1846 of the Corn Laws, which had blocked the cheap imported grain. Today, Bury is known for its back puddings and for one of the best markets in the UK. With the advent of the Metrolink service, a new terminus transport hub was built, leaving the East Lancashire Railway Society with the task of rebuilding our station much as it is today. It was reopened on July 25th, 1987. To the stage trains, obscene the conquering hero come played by the Irwell Forge Band, reputedly echoing the music played that at the opening of the first station in 1846. The present station reflects something of the 1950s stations designs of the London, Midland and Scottish Railway. In the main, the most used platforms are 3 and 4, with 2 mainly used for the dining train, consisting of some of the most beautifully restored and maintained coaches in ELR fleet. The roof over platform 2 was originally at Oldham Mumps station, but with the coming of Metrolink, it was taken down and reassembled at Bolton Street. Restoring the heritage railway is never a straightforward job, for just the canopy was prepared for the installation of the glass, the supplier was declared bankrupt and £18 was lost by the ELR. However, thanks to the considerable generosity of supporters, that sum and more was raised to provide the covering seen today. You've seen a raised of to provide the covering seen today. You'll see an acknowledgement of our donors generously displayed on the plaque on the pub wall where customers the excellent bar on the platform may relax. By the same token, railway staff are appreciative of the tea and pies provided by catering folk at our station. This is steam railway. Bury to Ramsbottom. The line now runs north towards Rawtenstall. On leaving Bolton Street Station, there is a short tunnel said to be in British rail days the shortest tunnel on the National Railway network, for which locomotives had to sound a whistle or a horn on entering it. After going through the tunnel, you'll find the Bury Transport Museum on the left. Well worth a visit. It was originally a goods shed used in the early days of the railway. Now there is a collection of buses, lorries, and vans, many which date from the 1950s, bringing back memories to an older generation. There is also a remarkable model railway layout, well illustrating both Bury, Bolton Street and Knowsley Street stations as they were before closure through beaching cuts. Shortly after leaving Bury, there was once a branch line 4 miles towards Holcombe Brook. A viaduct can be seen on the railway, which would have carried the line over the Irwell. It was opened in 1882. Built in 1912, was the scene of trails of electric railway designed for Brazil, made by Dick Kerr and Co. of Preston. That company installed overhead wiring and supplied the rolling stock. It was one of the earliest electric railway systems in the world when trains entered public service in July 1913. By 1918, it was converted to a third pickup to match the Manchester to Bury system. passenger services continued in 1952. Freight services continued to Holcombe until 1960 and Tottington until 1963, but it was then closed. Today, it is the pedestrianist and forms part of the Kirkless Trail. Burrs Country Park station is close to Caravan Park on the left, which is on the site of Burrs Mill, built in 1792 and owned amongst others by the Peel family and forming one of Bury's oldest original industrial communities. It was water powered originally, but the looms were later steam powered. Basic housing was built for the workers in back-to-back style with earthen floors. The employees were mainly women and children who worked 12-hour shifts. The spinners who worked at night were predominantly teenage girls who earned 11 shillings 55 pence a week. Only a handful of men and boys were employed to maintain and clean the machines. Little of the mill is to be found now. A caravan club site, it is the excellent starting point of caravan club members who are entitled to significant discounts of railway. This is Burrs Country Park photo. Behind the caravan site, there is a promontory, said the Roman fort, but actually it is an Iron Age fort dating from the 5th century BCE, continuing in use until the 1st or 2nd century CE. It was not attacked by the Romans because Cartimandua, the queen of the local tribe, the Brigantes, was the client ruler of the Romans. Much later, the Saxons knew of the fort and gave it its name. Burrs is a corruption of the Old English burg, a fort, feed, place, cf. Burg in German. It may be that the name Bury is developed from the same burg route. As the train continues north with the river Irwell on our left, we enter Somerset Station with its well-tended flower beds. Passing over the Brook's Bottom Viaduct just to the north of the village, one sees a fine-looking mill built in 1773. Today, it is a grade IV number 2 listed building converted to luxury flats with pub and restaurant. A far cry from the noise and bustle in 1023 looms that were once operated there. The bridge seen from the train is where the waterside inn was situated, but the floods of Boxing Day of 2015 rendered it's unsafe. It had been partially washed away and remains were demolished. The workers' cottages in nearby Thorn Street were used in the 1980s TV series Brass, which satirized working class period dramas of 1970s. Mills along the length of the railway line were dependent of the raw cotton improved very often from the cotton fields of the USA. Such imports provided much needed work of the working people of the valley, but there was a terrible downside of such businesses. Much of the cotton was grown by slaves. With this mind, in 1845, the Ladies' Free Grown Cotton Movement, based in Manchester, published a leaflet listing the names of Northwest manufacturers and sellers of cotton goods made from cotton was tanned by bean, produced by slave owners between 1833, when slavery was made illegal in the British Empire, and 1865, when it was abolished in America. Those manufacturers who use such cotton use the slogan free grown cotton in the promotion of their goods. That said, from mill owners still benefited by continuing to import slave grown cotton. Having passed through Somerset, the station now enters the 423-yard long Brooks Bottom Tunnel, followed by the Nuttall Tunnel, the north end of which is decorated by corbels said to represent local dignitaries of previous generations. Please do not stick your head out of the window to confirm this. This is the train of the tunnel. This is very dark. They put lights onto the passenger trains, yeah? Line passes over the River Irwell once again. It actually crosses the Irwell 9 times in its journey to Rawtenstall. Before entering Ramsbottom, you'll have seen the monument to Sir Robert Peel in the distance on the left-hand side of the train. It was opened in September 1852 and it's 100 feet 39 meters high, and from there on a clear day there is a view of North Wales, Yorkshire and North Lancashire. The Manchester Guardian of the time declared that it was not a specimen of architectural beauty. It was said to be built without the permission of the local landowner, the Duke of Buccleuch. Each Good Friday people climb Holcombe Moor, 1,100 feet and 335 meters, presumably to the sea the view rather than the monument. Ramsbottom was developed in the 19th century as a manufacturing and mill town, mainly involved a spin weaving and printing materials. Given the proximity of the river, most of the mills were originally water powered. Presently, the river is source of fine soft water of the microbreweries that have sprung up nearby. There was a family of industrialists in Ramsbottom in the mid 19th century called Grant removed renoved of their benevolence when were the Grant twins, William and Daniel. It is said the Charles Dickens went to Manchester to meet them. So impressed he that they became the exemplars of the Cheery brothers in Nicholas Nickleby. There is, however, another side of to mill employment at the time. Some mill owners paid their workers with tokens redeemable at the mill's own shops. Thus, mill owners recycled wages back into their own coffers and charged more of groceries than local shops. The landlord of the Grant Arms Hotel was also willing to redeem the tokens, but at a price, whilst the station at Ramsbottom looks as though it was an original construction. It was built from scratch by Preservation Society in a style influenced by the designs of the original ELR engineer John Perring, 1813 and 1869. He also wrote an early definitive book on the construction of the pyramids as Giza, still available through internet bookshops. The present day station was opened on June 19th in 1989 because there is a passing loop. This is the point at which trains await the arrival of any train going in the opposite direction. Tokens are exchanged, all following the onward journey and ensuring that it is safe to proceed. Safety is paramount on our heritage railways. Hence, trackside fencing is regularly inspected and maintained, and passenger trains are not allowed run at more than 25 miles per hour. At one time, there was a goods yard and warehouse on the left-hand side, yet another reminder of how much was delivered by rail, providing employment for local carriers who used horse-drawn wagons, and after the Second World War, redundant army vehicles. So that's people are walking next to the lake, okay? To Rawtenstall. We journey on trundling over the level crossing towards Stubbins and the one-time site of marshalling yards large enough to accommodate some 800 wagons. If the goods yard at the various stations remind us of the importance of freight, the marshalling yards would emphasize the point, and the fact that it is all disappeared from the railways and fills our motorways. The Stubbins marshalling yards, however, the pale of insignificance in comparison with crew were statics for 1938 shows that more than 40,000 goods wagons passed through the yards were in a normal week. At Stubbins, original routes diverged. A double line climbed its way northwest to Accrington, beyond to Preston, and holiday makers to Blackpool. Such excursions by train are long gone. Today's ELR train takes what would have been the branch line to Rawtenstall, but the left we can see the viaduct which once carried the line to Accrington across the Irwell. We, however, carried the line to Accrington across the Irwell. We, however, move into the Irwell and the area where the spectral scenes of a certain bank advert featuring a black horse running alongside Flying Scotsman was filmed. The film was reversed, so it's not easy to recognize the actual site. The closure of the Bury Accrington line had an impact not only on local journeys but also terms of cross-country passenger services. Once trains running south along our line would have included such as the ones that left Colne on a summer Friday evening to travel overnight to Bournemouth, conveying 1960s holiday makers, both erstwhile goods and passenger trains pointed out the way in which railways were the foundation of life in pre and post-war Britain. And this is the station, Rawtenstall. Our supplies of various kinds were carried by rail. Trains took people to work, shipped the wars they make, and took people on holiday. Ivelvale is a new station built just south of the old Ewood Bridge station, which itself was reconstructed after it had been destroyed by booms and dropped by a zeppelin on the 25th of September 1916. The 27-year-old captain of the airship is said on his return to base to have reported that he had bombed Derby. He was somewhat mistaken. ELR passengers assured of their safety. No zeppelins have been reported recently over the Irwell Valley. After passing through Irwell Vale, keep an eye out of the local sewage farm, and if that kind of things interest you, During the Second World War, it was the having bombed Liverpool managed to discharge a bomb that had previously failed to drop. No one was killed or injured, but had it been released a second or two later, it would have destroyed a terrace of workers' cottages, killing many. And this is the Rotten Stall. Our train passes over two level crossings and enters Rotten Stall station. The original station building was opened in 1849. 10 years later, a story goods shed added with cattle pens and seedlings, all now long since gone. The town itself developed as the manufacturing town during the Industrial Revolution, especially with regard to the manufacture of cotton, practically mixed with linen and known as fustian. It was hard wearing, easy to clean, and useful in many climates. The town was also known for the manufacture of clogs. It is said the clog fighting was not uncommon, known as puring opponents kicked each other with iron-tipped clogs. Less detrimental was sparking and an amusement of young lads who kicked the stone sets, the who could produce the most sparks. Clog making later gave way to shoe production together thanks to locally produced felt, with the manufacture of slippers which were shipped all over the world. This ceased in the 1980s of cheaper overseas production. Rawtenstall is the site of the still functioning Mr. Fitzpatrick's Temperance Bar, which claims to the only such bar the United Kingdom. The temperance movement was started in the 1830s and arose out of the concern of the day about alcohol consumption and drunkenness, which were caught to the great danger of society. His well-being 1838 group of characters considered the adoption of the temperance movement by working class people of to indicate that the working class were responsible enough they granted the vote. A development of the beverages available on sale in Lancashire as an alternative to alcohol was Vim Tonic, nowadays available under the name Vimto. So this is for Christians only. We don't do that. Your journey comes to an end of the rivality newly built station of Rawtenstall, complete with refreshment rooms and a clock tower based on the design of the one burned down Bury, though a little less French. The original station was demolished when the line was closed to passenger traffic in 1972. The new station ensures the designs of previous railway companies cost 250k to build and was opened on 16th April 1992. Enjoy your return journey by John Parry. So, and this is the map, okay? It is Lancashire railway line, and this, it's all these. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you again with another video. Bye.